Come on in. Welcome to Idled Out, where we talk all things Survivor. My name is Luke, and today we're talking about the dirtiest lies in Survivor history. There have been scores of great lies on Survivor, pulled off to perfection, and there have been even more truly terrible lies on Survivor.
For revenge, basically.
One thing they all have in common, though, they're generally considered within the confines of the game, and no one could argue they cross any sort of moral line. Today, we're stepping over that line to look at some of the nastiest, dirtiest, cruelest lies ever told on Survivor. These aren't your garden variety sort of lies. These are lies which many thought went simply too far, and in some cases caused mass outrage and controversy. They ask viewers to reflect on their own morality. Is this what I would do? Is $1 million worth corroding my soul? Do I really have the same set of values as this ramen-haired man? Everything is on the table here, from famous fibs and legendary lies to one or two you've probably forgot about. So all that said, let's talk about 5 of the nastiest lies in Survivor history. At number 5 is Russell lying about surviving Hurricane Katrina in Survivor Samoa. In Samoa, Russell came in wanting to play hard, fast, and dirty. And mission accomplished. While the cast caught on to Russell's antics by the end of the season, he successfully used a lie about surviving a deadly hurricane to build up goodwill with the Foa tribe on night 1. Russell spun a false tale about being a New Orleans firefighter during the flood, getting stranded on his roof for days. He even watched his beloved German Shepherd Rocky get swept away in the rushing floodwaters. Heartbreaking stuff, if even a sentence of it were real.
The storm was a Category 5. When it hit, it broke the levee. I was in my house. I have a German Shepherd. His name was Rocky. And I tried to get out the house, and I realized I wasn't going to make it. By the time I got upstairs, the water was rushing in like... I look at Rocky, I couldn't even see him. It was in muddy water, and he's gone. I can't even find him.
Oh my God.
The Steve Rannazzisi strategy. Now that is an interesting approach to Survivor. To be fair to Russell, he only lied about this at camp with his competitors. He was very transparent with the audience in confessional that this was all total BS, and he successfully used the fake goodwill he got on night 1 to obscure the chaos he was causing at camp. So this undoubtedly paid off in the short term, at least. Maybe that's why this one didn't have much public backlash. If anything, America was smitten with how hard Russell played in episode 1, and the Katrina lie was all just part of the experience. As quintessentially Russell as repeating confessionals ad nauseum or having razor-burnt pits. At number 4 is Denise lying about getting fired from her job at the reunion of Survivor China. This one's a little different. While not in the game proper, I think Denise's lie at the reunion of China earns its keep on this list. If you're a newer viewer of Survivor, you may have skipped the reunion when you watched this season. Even if you didn't, you still may not be aware that Denise was actually lying unless you Googled Denise Martin after finishing the show. And why would you Google that? But as a middle school lunch lady, Denise wasn't exactly raking in the dough. Throughout China, she was pretty sympathetic and rootable, which is why it was heartbreaking at the reunion when she said that she wasn't able to get her job back as a lunch lady, and she was now working as a janitor at her school because her presence was simply too distracting for the kids in the lunch line.
I went back and I talked to the food service director, and they didn't give me my job back. So I ended up having to go, I'm a janitor now. I clean the toilets, I wash the floors in the bathrooms, I vacuum the kids' rugs. Yeah, I miss dinner with my family. I haven't been to a field hockey game yet. I'm missing out a lot more than I originally had planned on doing. So.
Wow. I went on Survivor and all I got was this lousy toilet brush. Life just keeps kicking her while she's down, doesn't it? And it's all because she's too popular. Survivor executive producer Mark Burnett felt so bad for Denise that he gave her $50,000 after hearing this story. So we all went to bed that reunion night content that Denise's story had at least some sort of happy ending. Finally, I can stop waking up in a cold sweat, worried about Denise's financial situation. Except that isn't really what happened at all. The next day, after being inundated with thousands of angry emails and calls from Survivor fans, Denise's school put out a statement saying that she wasn't fired from the lunch lady gig. She was actually promoted to the higher-paying full-time custodian job at her request. But she didn't like the hours and ended up wanting to go back to being a lunch lady, but the position had been filled. Whoopsie. Denise said it was never her intention to lie, but if you rewatch the clip, you can definitely see her strategically leave out key details. So this is definitely a case of lying by omission. But even still, I don't want to hold Denise's feet to the fire too much on this one. I do find her a pretty sympathetic figure overall, and she did end up donating the $50K to charity, so all's right in the world, I guess. Still, probably the biggest reunion lie of all time, other than maybe we loved having all of you on, and Bryant Gumbel has seen this show.
And Ethan Zorn, now millionaire.
At number 3 is Johnny Fairplay lying about his grandmother's death in Survivor Pearl Islands. It's easily the most infamous lie not only on this list, not only on Survivor, but in reality TV history. There was no coming back from this one. People had lied about their votes, they'd lied about alliances, but the guardrails of the game were forever off after this. No one had ever really lied about real life in such a big way before. Fairplay came into Survivor wanting to play the villain. So prior to going on the show, Fairplay concocted this lie with his friend Dan, aka Thunder D. They decided that when Thunder D came out for the family visit, he was going to tell Fairplay his grandmother had passed away to help Fairplay build much-needed sympathy in the game, and more importantly, give Fairplay his heel moment.
Oh, dude, that was good.
Huh?
That was good.
She died, dude.
It was either going to be my buddy or my grandmother coming, and my grandmother's not here for a reason.
According to John, he pulled off the long con, laying the groundwork by telling his tribe early on that his grandmother was sick. He said they'd pray every night for his grandmother's health, and no one, not his tribe and certainly not production, was the wiser. So, when the family visit rolled around at the final 7, Fairplay pulled off one of the greatest lies in human history. I wonder if any of them figured out they'd been played when these two idiots started yucking it up seconds after they win the challenge. Making this even better, before they reveal to the audience that Fairplay's grandma is safe and sound at home, the show cuts to a scene where the others are talking about how bad they feel for him, letting it simmer and build sympathy with the audience, only to come back to show these two with the biggest shit-eating grins of all time. So much of Survivor to come was influenced by this. The toothpaste was out of the tube, and suddenly things that seemed like they should be off limits in Survivor suddenly weren't. It's a shame Fairplay only played one more time. There were so many more family members of his that could have croaked.
Shoot, maybe All Stars, my grandpa will die. I don't
At number 2 is Coach lying about having the idol to Brandon in Survivor South Pacific. In South Pacific, Coach used religion to wrap Upolu around his finger, slowly building a main group that was more cult than alliance, with him as the charismatic Jim Jones-esque leader. And while I don't doubt Coach's overall sincerity as a Christian, I do doubt his sincerity here when he prays to find an idol which is safely in his pocket, just to keep another player in line. Coach discovered in real time what people since time immemorial have known. Exploiting the faith of others is the quickest and easiest tool of manipulation. Coach needed numbers fast, and here on his tribe he found a young, troubled, struggling Christian man in desperate need of a father figure. So Coach prayed with Brandon, like a lot. And eventually things just went too far. In episode 5, Coach found the idol and decided to keep that intel close to his chest, telling only his closest allies Sophie and Albert. But a few days later, Brandon found a clue to the idol, and Coach feared that the ever-mercurial Brandon would go nuts if he found out Coach had the idol and didn't tell him. And to be fair to Coach, that seems to be an accurate assessment of the situation. So Coach pulls a move both incredibly brilliant and fairly disturbing in how effectively it manipulates Brandon. He gathers the tribe to pray that they find the hidden immunity idol. He lets Brandon lead the prayer, all while knowing full well the idol is safe in his pocket. Then he miraculously and publicly finds the idol shortly thereafter, effectively saving Coach from having to reveal to Brandon that he lied about not having the idol earlier, leading Brandon to believe that Upolu had divine providence at their back and that they were somehow God's favored alliance. God could only love an alliance more if it were Joanna and Leslie on the same season and they were just crying every time they looked at anything. Anyway, as for Coach, this was an effective move in the moment, but ultimately a bad one because the public nature of the lie meant that the chickens came home to roost at Final Tribal, when Sophie exposed the lie to Brandon and the rest of the jury, undoubtedly an ace in the hole she'd been holding all season long to deploy against Coach at the perfect time. Pretty dirty stuff overall, and there's somehow something that's even worse. At number 1 is Missy and Elizabeth weaponizing the Dan situation in Survivor Island of the Idols. Look, you guys know, unless I'm talking about my goat Dean, I hate talking about this dog water season, but to be honest, I was too far into making this video to dump it when I remembered that this happened, which you simply cannot exclude in a video about dirty lies. So pour one out for Rob telling Lex he'd take care of him in Survivor All-Stars, which got clipped. But in Island of the Idols, Dan was repeatedly and overly touchy with Kelly in unwanted ways, even after she asked him to stop. At the merge, Kelly confided this information to some of the women in her tribe, including Missy, who said she'd experienced the same inappropriate behavior. This seemed heartfelt and sincere on Missy's end, but when she learned later that Kelly planned to target her as the merge boot, Missy went on the warpath and encouraged Elizabeth to play up her own experiences with Dan to Janet to shift the target away from her. Then, once Kelly's voted out, Missy and Elizabeth publicly downplay their accusations against Dan, essentially gaslighting Janet and heaving her under the bus for putting her own game on the line to stick up for her fellow women. Yeah, it's a clusterfuck. What Dan did was obviously inappropriate and is certainly over a line. This whole mess is his fault for not being able to keep his hands to himself. Production should have pulled him from the game at this time, or at the very least made the warning the cast got about boundaries much clearer. But when we are specifically talking dirty lies in Survivor, Elizabeth and Missy capitalizing on a sexual harassment claim to save their own skin is pretty odious behavior, and very clearly goes beyond the game and has obvious real-world ramifications. Yuck. Anyway, remember how lying about a dead German Shepherd seemed bad back at the start of the video? Got nothing else for ya. This is no lie. If you like and subscribe, you'll get more Survivor content just like this, with much less Island of the Idols content next time, I promise. Until next time, don't get idled out.